I know what it's like to have this burning feeling inside of you that you are meant for something more, that you're supposed to start a business, that you're supposed to work for yourself, that you're supposed to be the author of your own destiny. I also know what it's like to claw, to look everywhere for where that opportunity is, to think through what you should do. How will you not fail? Where will you get the money? And I also know what it's like to push that all the way to the point of starting multiple businesses, growing those businesses, and exiting those businesses for 8 figures each. And what I want to give you today is a framework that I earned through pain, through suffering, through experience that's going to make it a lot easier for you. If you stick around to the end of this video, not only will you have a better idea of where you should look when starting your first business, or maybe your second or your third, but also how to do it in a way that brings real meaning to your life, real purpose, and a depth that you simply cannot achieve by working for someone else and helping them with their dream. Over the years, I've seen a lot of people start this process. And as I mentioned, I've been a part of it myself. And I think the mistake is made right from the onset. The mistake is in the framework that we adopt, which allows us to look at opportunities from the outside of ourselves. You see, it looks so simple online. What you do is you find a gap in the marketplace. There's a need for a product or service that solves a problem. You solve that problem. You then run ads to tell people that you solve that problem, and you scale those ads and you scale the business until you get to a place where you can exit this thing, which has been a lot of work, a lot of turmoil, and a lot of problems. And then you can retire, and your happiness will be delayed until that point in time. You will have made it. Well, trust me, as someone who quote unquote made it, that's not nearly the whole story. You see, the problem first starts with, how do you find an idea good enough to even make it through that process if you're going to do that? How do you stay competitive? And most importantly, how do you not give up your life and your soul in that process? You see, there used to be this bottleneck, and for years this was the case. And the bottleneck was the idea itself. What do I do? Where is there a need? Well, now with AI, anyone who has access to an LLM can come up with 5 business ideas by lunchtime that could be potentially world changing. The problem is that those ideas were born on the outside of you. They weren't born on the inside of you. They didn't come from your experience. They didn't come from the unique life that you lived. And because the market is now being flooded with all these business opportunities, we now see a new bottleneck. People are starting businesses, but they have no ability to sell the product or service that they created because they have no life lived behind it. This is leading to what seems to me like a slew of soulless companies. What's a soulless company? Well, I believe the recipe for a soulless company starts by someone creating a business because of some type of incentive that's on the outside of themselves versus digging deep into themselves to figure out what business is calling to them. You see, when I've studied businesses and successful business owners in the past, when I reflect on my own story, I realize that great businesses are born out of pain and struggles and unique experiences that the founders had. Take the story of WhatsApp, for example. The founder of WhatsApp grows up in what was then the Soviet-controlled Ukraine. He had this trauma in his childhood of constantly being on watch and feeling as if the government was always paying attention through wiretaps and so on and so forth, and has vivid memories of his parents not wanting to use the telephone to communicate with anyone because someone was always listening. The founder eventually moves to the United States at the age of about 16 and lives in poverty, standing in line for food stamps so that he could eat and sweeping floors to make ends meet. This triggered in him this desire for success. And so he grows up and he gets involved with software and developing software and creating solutions. And eventually WhatsApp is born. And it's born on this premise of privacy, security. Messages are encrypted end to end. He doesn't want to allow advertisers on the platform because to do so would be to violate the very privacy that he held so dear as a child and now he carried into his adulthood. As you know, WhatsApp was a massive success, and he ends up selling this business to Facebook for $19 billion. And when he signs the deal with Facebook, he does so on the door of the social services office where he used to stand in line for food stamps. Can you imagine what that must have felt like? So here's my question. Did he choose that business, or did that business choose him? Had it been calling out to him? Was he the one who was uniquely positioned for that business? Could he have found that opportunity? Could someone else have found that opportunity on the outside of themselves and done it as well as him? Could it have been as truthful, as authentic? No, it couldn't have. You ever heard of Ben and Jerry's ice cream? Ben and Jerry grow up as childhood friends. They have these huge aspirations to be something, to make something of themselves, but it just didn't pan out that way. They couldn't find their footing. Jerry wanted to go to medical school. That didn't work out. Ben ended up becoming a college dropout. They grow into their late 20s and they just kind of failed to bloom. So feeling left behind by society, they begin to embrace alternatives. They become outcasts, and they dive into this one thing that they're passionate about, which is ice cream. But they want to create a unique style of ice cream that represents how unique they are. You see, there's one interesting fact here. Ben had no sense of smell. Think about that. So what that led to was this rich, thick, and chunky texture that we all love about Ben and Jerry's. It was born out of this thing that Ben had that was unique about him that most would see as a deficiency. But it led to the birth of what is my favorite ice cream. They end up having this company that stands for social justice rights, and they donate 7.5% of their profits to charity. Now think about this. Could you or I have created Ben and Jerry's the same way that Ben and Jerry did? No, not without that unique experience, not without the life lived. They didn't choose that business. That business chose them. And so that's what I'm saying. Typically, if we want to figure out where we have the most value to offer, we have to figure out what's most scarce. And there is nothing more scarce than the unique life that you have lived, the unique problems that you have solved. What I've seen is this pattern emerge where there is suffering, there is a problem, the problem is overcome, there is a framework that is then accomplished in overcoming that problem, and then that framework is given away through a map, some type of shortcut, and that product or service resonates with the end consumer because it came from an authentic founder. It didn't come from an AI idea. It didn't come from some randomly generated thing. It came from a real life lived. If I think about my own life, I followed this process. You see, I had a traumatic injury whenever I was 17 years old. That traumatic injury led me to spending a lot of my days in physical therapy, which led me into physical fitness. It didn't take long for me in physical fitness to realize there's this whole world of self-improvement, that I could improve myself, that I could make myself better. Self-improvement led me to wanting to make more money. And when I wanted to make more money, I got into trading and stock investing. Trading and stock investing led to me creating a network of people who also wanted to succeed with money, and they happened to be business owners. So now I'm getting into business. Now I'm starting my own business. Starting my own business led me to discover software. Software led me to growing, scaling, exiting 3 different businesses at 8-figure valuations. Achieving that gave me the credentials I needed to stand up as a consultant and help others do that same thing. And now I find myself building consulting software. You see, it was my unique experience. It was the adversity that I faced and overcame that allowed me to create frameworks and maps for others so that they could also achieve the goals that they wanted to achieve. It was like I took a step, and that step illuminated the next step, which then illuminated the next step, and so on and so forth. At any point in time, had I given up, at any point in time, had I hidden away, I would not be able to take the next step. And that's what I see a lot of people doing. A lot of people want to hide from their life experience. They don't want to talk about the hardships that they've had to overcome. They don't want to talk about the life they've lived. They want to hide it away. But when they do that, they're taking the most scarce thing in their life and they're hiding it from everyone else. And what they're doing is they're retracting their gifts from the world. When they could get paid for those gifts, they can get paid for those shortcuts, they can get paid for those frameworks, they can get paid for those solutions. And it's so important because when they do that, it gives their pain, it gives their life a purpose. And that experience allows them to market unlike anyone else. You see, what we value going forward, especially in the age of AI, is going to be trust. Trust is fleeting. Trust has been and always will be the most important part of any business transaction. And it's very hard to trust a solution that was not built from a base of authenticity, of someone solving a real problem that they have experienced. And so this new bottleneck of marketing is literally solved the day that you decide that you're going to take your life story and you're going to turn that into a product or a service to help others. In that way, you get paid to be yourself. You don't have to be artificial. You don't have to fake it till you make it. You don't have to get into an industry that you know nothing about because an LLM told you that there was an opportunity. You get to wake up every single day and give your unique gifts to the world. Not only will you be able to market these types of products, not only will you be able to scale these products, but you can enjoy the process and you can get a fulfillment that you can never get from working for someone else. This is the best, most fulfilling, most complete route to entrepreneurship that I could possibly give you after doing this, studying this, and living this for 17 years.